Hello. Good morning, everyone. It is Power in Numbers Live for May of 2026. This is our monthly, I typically do the last Wednesday of every month. You'll probably notice that this is not the last Wednesday of the month, and that's because I have some vacation planned for the end of the year. So we're doing it a little bit early this month, so hopefully that works out for y'all. I don't know about you. My kids get out of school this week. Today is their last full day of school. So this is probably my last full day of actually being able to get anything done for the next couple of months. But here we are, and I'm going to spend it with you lovely folks. So we have some really interesting stuff to get into today. I'm really excited for today. This is the live show where I get to talk about news, to-dos, and cues. Those are our three segments of the show that we'll get into in just a minute. But what I wanted to talk about today relates to AI. And I want to talk about it on kind of more, not so much, we'll talk a little bit about how it impacts small businesses, what you need to be thinking about when it comes to AI. But I also kind of want to talk a little bit bigger picture, right? Like, what do we really think could happen? What is the potential kind of economic and social consequence as AI really starts moving? And so I want to kind of, talk a little bit about this. This is almost going to be more of a sort of what a conversation with me would be like if you were sitting on my back porch with a cup of coffee. This is what my husband and I sit and talk about. My friends and I sit and talk about over a glass of wine, right? We're going to chat a little bit about, some of where we could be going. And I don't want to do it in an alarmist way, but I do think we need to be aware of, how quickly this is moving and how much it could change for us, both in our small businesses and in our daily lives. And, honestly, economically for the country and the world as a whole. So let's talk about it. I don't want to give away too much of my thoughts on the subject, but I really want to encourage you to put your thoughts below as well. I think this is one of those, it's a conversation. It's one we need to keep having. And we need to really talk about, how we're processing through what's going on. Before we get into all of that, however, I need to introduce my fabulous sponsor today, which is Kajabi. This is the first time we've had Kajabi as a sponsor, so yay. If you don't know what Kajabi is, it's really a system that is built for really online businesses. So if you have digital products or email lists, or you want to be able to build landing pages, newsletter opt-ins, anything like that, literally a community, they have community functions now. Kajabi is amazing. And so the reason that they're sponsoring this month is because they have a special deal going on. I've never seen them offer this deal. Kajabi is what I run my business on. I mean, my email list is on Kajabi. So if you've gotten an email from me, that's where it's come from. Most of my digital products are housed in Kajabi. The sales pages, checkout carts, things like that we've used in Kajabi. So definitely go check that out. 50% off Kajabi for a full 12 months. I've never seen them do this. If you've been thinking about getting in, this is the month to do it. It's really just for this month. So you want to sign up in May. If you're going to do it, I put the QR code just because I think that's a fun little function that I figured out how to do in StreamYard, which is what I use to go live. So if you want to check out Kajabi, again, if you've been thinking about it, you've heard of it, you know people who use it, and you aren't sure if it's right for you, go check it out now, because this is honestly the time to do it. I love a good deal. I love to bring you all a good deal whenever I can. And here's the link to, if you don't want to use the QR code, you can just go to jamietrull.com/Kajabi. And say hi when you're here. Hey guys, I like putting up your faces on screen. So tell me when you're here, because I see several of you, several people are up here right now. I'll leave this QR code up for a little while. Okay. Without further ado, we're going to get into it. We're going to start with this news segment. All right, here we go. Our new branding. If y'all have not seen, by the way, I need you, everybody, just go to jamietrull.com sometime, because we have rebranded everything. The website is gorge. I'm very excited about it. So if you have not been to our website in the last couple of weeks, I need y'all to check it out. Check it out. I'm very, very, very proud of all the work that's been done by my team to get it up and running. Okay. So So where should we start in this conversation of AI? I was trying to decide how I wanted to frame it. And this is going to be a little bit more of a conversation because there's not necessarily specific news that I'm speaking to in this section. It's really just more of overall what's going on related to AI. And so I'm going to start kind of more macro, and then I'm going to pull it back more towards, how you might be thinking about this as a small business. And again, I'd love for you to share your thoughts, because I think there's a lot of nuance here. And what I'm seeing online, there's a lot of different avenues you can go down with your thoughts on AI, right? Honestly, I think, there's a very binary view that I've seen out there. Either people are all about it, they want to put AI on everything, and really, like, that's the wave of the future, we all need to jump on board. And then there's people who are just fully against, absolutely not, right? And that's for various different reasons, whether that be people-centered, labor-centered, environmentally centered, economically centered, whatever it is, right? So I want to talk about it with a little more nuance, because I have my own personal thoughts, right? But I do think that it is a topic that deserves some nuanced conversation. Just like any technological advancement, this is going to be the biggest one of our generation, right? We've seen a lot. We've seen a lot in our lives. We haven't seen this before. We have not seen anything like this before. And we can try to say, well, the computer, the cell phone, internet, all of those things change things. Absolutely. But I don't know that any of those had the ability to change things as fundamentally from a system perspective as this potentially does. So let's talk about that. And I'll say this too. I also think the other avenue people take on this is an alarmist, doomsday, fear-mongering perspective. And I don't come from that either. Not that I don't think that there aren't some very scary potential consequences if we don't handle this the right way, but because I don't think it's very helpful to just be, running around screaming the sky is falling. That doesn't make actual change. So we need to be able to have these more nuanced conversations. All right, the first thing I want to put up is talking about what's going on with jobs. So again, economically, how are we thinking about this? And so I have I went ahead and put the link to the articles. I typically put the links to the articles in the comments. My team is doing that as I'm talking, so that if you want to take a deeper dive, which I absolutely recommend, into any of these, if you're curious about it, then absolutely you have the links to be able to do so. And I try to share links that don't have a paywall. Okay, so this was an interesting article that I found that was really talking about the list of companies that are announcing AI-driven layoffs. We've heard that companies are laying off due to AI. And so I think it's very siloed right now for who is doing it. But you can see here, and this article came out in May. So over 100,000 employees were impacted by AI-driven layoffs in 2025. Thus far in 2026, that's already 70,000. We're only in May, okay? And 45 CEOs have announced layoffs due to efficiencies made by AI, right? Like, that's the new buzzword, efficiencies made by AI. I guarantee you, so I worked in Fortune 500 finance for a long time, and I would help write these press releases that we would put out as a company. And man, I mean, I know that all over these press releases, it's going to be efficiencies driven by AI. It's going to be everywhere. That's going to be the buzzword for 2026. Our profit margins increased due to efficiencies made by AI. It's going to show up everywhere. And you know what? What's interesting is what they're saying is we let go of people. efficiencies by AI is basically we let go of a bunch of people. And we were able to increase our profit margins because of it, right? Because we were able to decrease our costs. And that's ultimately what they're truly saying in that. And the thing about it is, share owners, right? Investors will love it. They'll be all about it. The market, their stock prices will go up. That's all good news to an investor. But if you're reading this as a layman, you're like, wait a second, hang on, what's going on here, right? Like, we're celebrating a lot of people losing their jobs, but that is how these public companies are set up. Their main stakeholders, as they call them in a company, is the share owner, right? And so that often takes precedence even over the consumer, which I find really interesting because honestly, without a consumer, we don't have a company. But I digress. It's all about the share owner. So everything is about maximizing share owner value, which basically means making more profit, increasing your earnings per share as much as humanly possible, right? So either by increasing revenue and sales or by decreasing costs or both. So I find it really interesting that, we're seeing this already happening. Some companies are already laying off 10,000 or more. These are typically a lot of like your bigger companies, your tech companies. This is where it generally starts, right? I am not yet seeing this with small business. We'll talk about that here in a minute. I hope not to see it really with small business, and I'll tell you why. But ultimately, yeah, so more than 60% of those announcing layoffs were companies with over 100,000 employees. So that's really who's benefiting right now from these efficiency gains are these large corporations. That probably surprises absolutely no one, right? And so you can look down here if you want to see like who it is, right? It's a lot of companies you have heard of that are the ones that are getting rid of the most people with AI. Now, I find this interesting because I have my own thoughts on what this is going to do to some of these companies. I was really interested in this. UPS laying off 48,000 people in logistics. Who are they laying off? I'm so curious. It says their operational workforce. I'm so curious. Are robots going to start delivering our packages? I mean, they've talked about it, so maybe so. But it is really interesting to kind of see this. And this is interesting too. Voluntary exits. That means like if you leave, they're either, incentivizing you to leave on your own, or if you leave, hi, you're watching me maybe on YouTube right now. Hi, YouTube. But they're kind of letting that attrition and probably not going to be, backfilling those roles. So to me, that's a little bit more of a ethical way to do things, but no one asked my opinion, I suppose. So that's an interesting article if you're curious what companies this is affecting the most. Now let's jump in though, because of course it's going to start there. And we're not going to feel this overall yet for the economy because it is very concentrated to certain businesses that we're seeing really rolling this out early and eliminating jobs as a result of it. What will happen though ultimately overall in our economy? That's my question, right? As more companies, again, probably starting with these big companies, lay people off, what do we expect to see? So I do want to see this, right? I want to put this up as well. Give me 1 second. The next article I wanted to show you is from Fortune that came out recently. Here we go. So this is the Fortune article. And it says AI isn't paying off the way companies think. Interesting. Layoffs driven by automation are failing to generate returns, study finds. So I found this interesting. It's a little bit of an annoying article to get through. But I thought this was kind of an interesting thing about what people are seeing returns from. And this kind of jives a little bit more with my experience of it. So it said the companies reporting high ROI were not the same ones reporting AI-related workforce reductions. So, maybe there's a delay in that, but my guess is that it isn't necessarily contributing, in the same way immediately as they would have thought, right? But it says, in fact, workforce reduction rates were nearly equal for those reporting higher ROI and those with smaller returns or even worsened outcomes from autonomous operations. Because there are, let's think about it. There are a lot of ways in which AI can backfire, right? Especially if we're using it for, customer relations. We have all been on the phone, like screaming representative in the phone, just hoping to talk to an actual human. There are ways in which over automation, depending on what you decide to automate and who you are replacing, can absolutely be a negative for a company, right? It may actually, yes, sure, you may be saving cost, but you actually may have a declining sales base as a result. And that's something we really have to watch for, especially as small businesses, which I will get to. But what was interesting about this is it said, and this is really jives with what I've seen as well. Sorry if this is really small on your screen. Let me see if I can blow this up a tad bit. It says that instead, the study found companies with the highest gains were those using AI as a form of people amplification. Okay. Implementing the technology to make workers more productive rather than outright replacing them. So this jives a little bit more with what I've seen work in the small business world as well. Um, and that's honestly, we are not fully anti AI in this business. It would actually be very difficult to. Even companies that don't think that they're using AI probably are. A lot of the tools that you use, I mean, I'm talking about Kajabi here, there's AI integrated within Kajabi. So a lot of the tools that you're already using probably have AI capabilities that are within those tools. So it's very hard, right, to completely ignore AI. It's very hard to kind of boycott AI, as it were, because it's integrated in so many things that we use all the time. But when we do use AI, it's always as an augmentation. I am not, I have 5 full-time employees. That includes myself. My intention is not to get rid of an employee and replace them with AI. I find that almost laughable as a small business owner, no matter how smart AI gets. I do not see that as being the goal. However, I do see it as being the goal first as a small business owner. Some of the tasks that are more administrative in nature that take me some time, I can automate a lot of the things that I do, which is great, or just make them, a task that would have taken me 2 hours now might take me 20 minutes if I utilize AI wisely to do that. And so that can be, reviewing things, right? Summarizing things. I use it for brainstorming, outlining things. Like, it takes a lot less time. So I see that, and my staff uses it the same way. So we have, we're working through how do we use AI, and we're constantly thinking about what do we want to put out, right? What we put out in the world, we're really trying to limit the AI generated content that we're putting out in the world, because it's a dime a dozen. Yes, it's very quick to write, a newsletter with AI, but if we don't have actual humans in there really thinking about what we want to say, it sounds like everything else. And so it's not going to be good for the business. It might save efficiency in the short term, but it's not building trust in the long term. So we've really pulled back on our AI usage on social media and things like that when it comes to writing, our content. But I love it for helping my staff be more efficient. I'll give an example. I have, we just instituted a customer service platform called Front. And so it allows us to really collaborate a lot better on emails. We can tag people, we can, sort things better. But part of what it also has is an ability to have essentially a database of information that we can program and that it can, we can train it on. And so, let's say somebody reaches out that is a customer service, has a customer service question, a customer of ours, right? It's always going to be a human. It is my customer service manager, Danielle, who will be the one in there responding to you most of the time, right? But it's always going to be a human. And however, she may use kind of the databases. If you're asking a question, I have let's say you have a question about my hiring your kids toolkit, and you're wondering if it covers a certain topic, right? Or you're wondering where to find it. Maybe you're a customer and you own it, but you're trying to find something. Rather than her having to go scour the product for a long time to try to figure out exactly where it is and give those instructions, all of that is in the database within our system. So she can just query that, and then it will help her to much more easily pull that information and write a helpful email back to the customer in a much more expedient time frame. So it can be really good for our customer service reps. It means that they're saving time, right? So that they can focus on things that are more valuable, or even cut the amount of work that she has to do and the amount of hours that she has to work. And it can be beneficial on the customer side, because now they're getting a quicker, accurate answer to their question. So I see that for us, that's kind of what this was talking about, where it's people amplification, right? How can we help our workers versus replacing them? And that's kind of a little clue into how I want people to be thinking about this a little bit, is from that perspective. So let's pull up the next thing. I'm going to take this QR code down. So the other thing I want to talk about is regards to AI regulation. So from an overall perspective, right? If companies, big companies, start laying off people in large droves, as we can see that they are, and replacing them with AI. And mind you, right now, yes, people amplification is a great way to use it if you decide that you want to use AI, right? Um, However, it's getting smarter every single day, much faster than we are getting smarter, to be honest, right? And in fact, I would probably argue that we've almost forgotten how to do certain things. Even in just the couple of years that AI has been available to us, I find sometimes that it's harder for me to do things that I used to do just fine. Writing, brainstorming, those types of things. I go immediately to a tool rather than spending the time that I used to have to spend to come up with it myself. And so I would argue that while AI is getting smarter, we are probably moving in the opposite direction in terms of our skill set, right? And this is kind of my overall thought when I think like economically. Okay, let's just big companies. Again, I worked in Fortune 500. Their goal is to maximize share owner value, meaning they want more revenue, less costs. This is a quick way to reduce costs for them, right? And very quickly increase, at least in the short term, those profit margins. So assuming all else is equal, right? Assuming they're making the same number of sales, now they have less cost. That's more profit margin. That's more, share owner value, right? And so that's going to benefit, company leadership. That's going to benefit share people who are highly invested in the company. And so it's going to be lauded, right? It's going to be praised. The street is going to love it. Wall Street's going to be all over it, right? Look at how efficient all these companies are being. However, there's a long-term thing here too, right? Because what happens when all these big companies lay off, who are the mega employers, by the way, of the country, lay off, large swaths of their working, of their workforce? Well, now we have a bit of a problem because it's also, the economy and capitalism as we see it, right? It requires a specific kind of set of events to have. You have to have, people who have jobs. Those jobs are paid. Those people then buy things, right? They buy things from these companies. They consume, right? Capitalism requires consumers. And so then those companies make more money. And then those companies hopefully hire more people. And then it starts over again. That's how you grow economically in a capitalistic system. And so what happens though, if we don't have that, if there's disruption at the level of there aren't as many workers, that's going to disrupt a lot of things. So eventually that reduces your pool of consumers. So less people are buying products. So yeah, now you've reduced your costs, but your revenue and sales are declining because there's less people who have, income in order to be able to buy those things. That's why it's so important. Unemployment has such an impact on the economy as a whole, because if a lot of people are unemployed or underemployed, i.e. making less money than they could be, than their skill set would say that they should be, then that is where you run into an issue. And then there's an issue from a tax perspective as well. In the US, our tax system is set up to that the vast majority of the taxes that the federal government brings in are labor taxes. They are off the back of, working folk. They're income taxes, right? So if you're making an active earned income, you pay higher taxes. And, Social Security, Medicare, those are payroll taxes, right? That is where the vast majority of the government's income comes from. Yes, they have corporate taxes and capital gains, but they are taxed at significantly lower rates than the working folk of the country. We are paying the vast majority of the taxes. If you are working, that is true. And so what happens then? If less people are working, less people are making an income, that means less income taxes going to the federal government, right? So what now? And while I stop short of saying like total economic collapse, right? I do worry about the broader implications of all of this. Like what happens over the longer term? And I'm not even talking longer term 50 years here. I'm talking longer term, like 5 years because of how fast all of this is moving and how quickly we're already seeing companies laying off. They are thinking about short-term gains, and it makes sense. And they're thinking, well, other companies are going to do it, so of course I have to do it too in order to be competitive with those other companies. And so they're not going to take one for the team and say, you know what, we're going to think about the broader economic impact here and do the right thing. That's cute if you think that that is at all on the radar screen for these big companies. But it ends up being like a race to the bottom. And that is my concern here about what happens then. What happens then? Because we have to have an economy of consumers in order to, in order for a capitalistic economy, especially to work. So what changes? And I think it is time. I think what we've done in the past when we've had advancements is rather than rethinking a capitalistic society, we've tried to regulate it or put protections, right? So one of the things that came out of automations in the past is worker protections because there was exploitation on workers, and so we had additional worker protections that were put in. That's what the Department of Labor, minimum wage, right, hours limits, things like that. So we came in to say like, okay, free markets will not typically protect workers because there's not an incentive to. And so we have to come in and regulate. So the question is, are we going to go into a situation where now we need to regulate AI and figure out how to fit it into our capitalistic society? Or is it going to essentially force us to rethink the entire thing, the entire system? Because capitalism, the whole kind of crux behind it is, people who want to, who work for a living are the backbone of the economy. But if the backbone of the economy is no longer workers, then what happens? Right? What happens? It breaks. Something's gonna break. And so this is kind of where, like, these are the mild existential crises that I have in the middle of the night. Again, not from a fear perspective, but it's changing so quickly, and I don't even think we realize it. And I think especially small business owners are kind of siloed, thinking about it like they're thinking about ChatGPT, right? They're not thinking about super intelligence. So we're gonna get into this. I want to bring this up, and this is because if there are some people that are very pro free markets, anti regulation, and I get it. I worked for a company. Most companies are very anti-regulation. Why? Because it limits the amount of money that they can make, right? Or it puts requirements for them to do things to prevent, sort of the overrun of capitalism and money above people. And so I worked in Fortune 500, and every single possible regulation that they tried to put on our industry, we would lobby against with all the gusto in the world. However, we're not seeing that with AI companies. And I find that really interesting. And I think it's because they know how significant this is. So we're going to talk about AI regulation. And this, I want to show you, this is actually OpenAI's industrial policy for the intelligence age. Okay. So I'm going to pull this up. They put this out. If you do nothing else today, after watching this, I would love for you to read this whole thing. It's 13 pages. It's not a crazy amount. But you can see that even this came from Sam Altman of OpenAI, basically saying, hey, we need to do something here. We cannot let this go unchecked because it could go really good or it could go really terribly. And so here, let me blow this up a minute. So you could read the whole thing, but this is kind of the summary. As we move towards superintelligence, which, by the way, that word kind of terrifies me. Like, what is superintelligence? Holy cow, we don't even know yet. Like, we don't even have a capacity to understand what this will be just yet. Just like we couldn't have imagined the internet, what it is today in like 1975. Like, we don't even have capacity to understand this. It says incremental policy updates won't be enough to kickstart this much needed conversation. OpenAI is offering a slate of people-first policy ideas designed to expand opportunity, share prosperity, and build resistant institutions, ensuring that advanced AI benefits everyone. This is also very AI written. How can I tell? By the way it's written and the em dashes. I loved em dashes. Now I have to get rid of them all the time so people don't think that it's AI writing it. I hate that. Thanks for ruining em dashes, OpenAI. So basically this is saying like they're welcoming feedback. So y'all, you got some feedback? Go ahead and let them know. They're discussing this, but the full document is going to be over here. So let me open that up for you real quick so you can actually see the document. We're just going to look at a couple of things. And like I said, I think this is very worth taking a look through because it really does give you a view of how even these AI companies are seeing things. And I think that's important to note because if they're sounding the alarm, right? If the companies that are benefiting and profiting off of this are already sounding the alarm, we need to pay attention. We need to pay attention. Okay, so this is, again, industrial policy for the intelligence age, ideas to keep people first from OpenAI. This just came out last month in April. So I love it's, essentially saying the drive to understand has always powered human progress. Here, I'll blow this up a little bit more again. Here, let's get rid of this so that y'all can see it a little bit more, but I also have posted the link. So let's see. The drive to understand has always powered human progress, creating a flywheel from science to technology, from technology to discovery, and from discovery onward. Okay, all right, ChatGPT, we know you wrote this. Like it's waxing poetic right now. Let's get to the real thing. But in just a few years, AI has progressed from systems capable of fast, narrow tasks, right? That's still sometimes how we think of AI. That's not what it is anymore. To models that can perform general tasks people used to need hours to do. Now we're beginning a transition towards super intelligence, okay? AI systems capable of outperforming the smartest humans even when they are assisted by AI. No one knows exactly how this transition will unfold. I remind you again, this is not like a anti-AI lobbying agency putting this out, right? This is the flagship company that founded ChatGPT, OpenAI, that put this out. And they're trying to, say, hey, we're one of the good ones, right? Like we know we have this super powerful thing and we don't even really know what's going to happen with it. And we can't even really control it once it's out of the box. But look at us. We really care about this. Let's write this 13-page thing that shows how much we care. So the promise of superintelligence is extraordinary. Just as electricity transformed homes, combustion engine remade mobility, and mass production lowered the cost of essential goods, superintelligence will speed up scientific and medical breakthroughs. I actually do agree with that. I think that is one of the nuances in the conversation that is something we could see, amazing scientific and medical breakthroughs, right? Significantly increased productivity. That's how we've started using it already. Lower costs, and this is where I really have questions. Lower costs for families by making essential goods cheaper. Will it? I won't hold my breath. And open the way for entirely new forms of work, creativity, and entrepreneurship. That's probably true. So I'll go just kind of, in here. I just want to give you kind of an overview of what this is saying. While we strongly believe that AI's benefit will far outweigh its challenges, well, of course you would, because you are the company making it. If you didn't think that, then I would be a little concerned. We're clear-eyed about the risks of jobs and entire industries being disrupted, bad actors misusing the technology, misaligned systems evading human control, governments or institutions deploying AI in ways that undermine democratic values. That would never happen. What? No. What? And power and wealth becoming more concentrated instead of more widely shared. Yeah. We know what's going to happen, right? We know this. They know this. That's why they're saying this. Indeed, we highlight these risks here to raise awareness of the need for policy solutions to address them. What's hilarious is they're calling for policy. Policy is regulation. That's what policy is, right? Especially if you're talking on a national level. Policy is regulation. They're saying, hey, we probably need to regulate this because it can go real bad, real fast. Wealth can get easily concentrated in the hands of a few. Think about what I was just saying a minute ago, right? Where I was talking about how the corporations and the share owners are going to be the benefactors here. Well, you might think, well, like that could benefit me because I have a 401k and I've got some stock in my 401k and that'll increase the value of the stock. Yay, rah, right? However, did you know that 90% of stocks in the US, 90% are held by 10% of people? 90% are held by 10% of people. So yeah, you may own a little bit in your 401k, but I promise you, you're not going to benefit in the same way as the people who are really, holding on to the ownership in these companies. And so that's something important to note. And that is how we end up with a shrinking middle class. That is how we end up with the haves and the have-nots. And I really try not to get political here, but I don't think that this is a political point. I think that across party lines, people are more and more seeing that there is a huge divide between the people at the top, like the small amount. We're not talking about people who are, doing well, that, are small business owners that have, a couple of franchises. I'm not talking about them. I am just the people who are real, true, self-made success stories. I think that's amazing. We're talking about people who have billions of dollars in hoarded wealth, right? You can't earn $1 billion. You can't earn it, not by work, not by labor, right? That's why they don't have a paycheck of billions of dollars. It's getting taxed with payroll taxes and income taxes, right? You can't earn $1 billion. There's a lot of things you can do to get $1 billion, but you can't earn it. And so you can inherit it. You can exploit your way there. You can underpay workers. You can do a lot of things to make $1 billion. But it's very difficult, I'll say, to earn truly with just work $1 billion. And so I think it's important to see, like, that's one of my biggest fears is there will be a race for short-term profits. And that will leave out a large part of the people who are affected. We will not get a share in that. These productivity gains, all these amazing things that AI is going to be able to do, who are going to be the ones that benefit, both in the short term and in the long term? That's the question. So unless policy keeps pace with technological change, these institutions and safety nets needed to navigate this transition could fall behind. We already are. We're already behind, y'all. We're already behind in this. So this is where it's basically saying share prosperity broadly. This is what their kind of goals are, the future that they want to see. And they want to see super intelligence benefit everyone. So sharing prosperity broadly and higher quality of life for all. Do we think that's really going to happen, right? Like, I think there's a little bit of a pie in the sky, like, AI is going to do our jobs and then we're just going to hang out. All of a sudden, there's been talk of like, maybe we'll have a shorter work week here in the US. I'll believe it when I see it. We have such ingrained thoughts about this in our society of like what work ethic is, right? But if time spent working isn't really what was creating productivity, then what value? Like, we lose a lot of value, right? In at least the value we've seen ourselves in as a society. We get a lot of value from our work ethic. That is something that is dear to a lot of us, and our productivity. And if that now isn't needed, well, what then, right? And so it's very interesting to talk about how can this turn into a higher quality of life for all. Well, it's, again, that would be if, let's say, you implemented this for your workforce and you said, okay, well, now that we have these tools, you only have to work 4 days instead of 5. And then maybe eventually you only have to work 3 days, right? But your income's going to stay the same. What are the chances? Right? That's not how this is going to go. We're going to eliminate jobs, or we're just going to pour more on people and just require them to be even more productive. That's what's happened in the past. You would have thought with the onset of the internet, the amount of productivity we put out today, I forget the statistic off the top of my head, but is like astronomically more than the productivity like pre the internet in like the 1980s, right? Astronomically more. The daily minute by minute productivity. We have email, we have all the cell phones, like every advancement of technology has increased our productivity by leaps and bounds. Has it ever resulted in us working less? In real working folk working less, right? I don't know about you, but that hasn't been the case for me. It's just more of a race, right? We're just trying to keep up with everybody else. And so I find it difficult to think that, oh, look, we're so productive. AI is so productive that now we can enjoy our lives more. I mean, Sure. With what money? Right? So, this is a lot of like great pie in the sky. Here's how it should be. But like what I found about this is it lacks a lot of specifics on how to make this happen. It's just like we need work groups that are looking at this and thinking about it. And it's like, great, but what can we actually do? Right? So risks of economic disruption, misuse in cybersecurity. I mean, they talk a lot about the risks. They know the risks. The risks are real. We need to be aware of them. They're telling us what they are. Yeah, without effective mitigation, people will be harmed. People will be harmed. This is the company that created this that is saying this. Y'all, and there are still people that will argue against AI regulation, saying the free market should take over. The company that literally was the first, to market for a lot of this stuff is saying people will be harmed if we don't do something. We need to be aware of that. So there's a lot of talk here: democratized access and agency, new industrial policy. There's just a lot of really interesting things in here. It does talk about AI data centers should pay their own way on energy so that households aren't subsidizing them. I would argue also to not be poisoning water around all these data centers and taking up our land and our, national forests and things like that, and our farmland. Like, we'll have a glass of wine and talk about that one. If you want to talk data centers, we'll save that for later. But there's just so much that is changing, and so many risks that are happening, and they're the ones who are basically saying this. So take a read through this. It talks a little bit. This is where it says, let's build an open economy. There's a lot of talk of things like universal basic income. Okay, if AI takes all our jobs, will the government then send everybody some checks, right? So that we can still be consumers. But I just politically, I wonder whether something like that could ever happen. A public wealth fund. This I found interesting. Create a public wealth fund that provides every citizen, including those not invested in financial markets, that's big, with a stake in AI-driven economic growth. But who's going to enforce any of this? Who's going to push this through? I just don't see the appetite for this happening. We as people have to demand this, because otherwise all of this is going to go to a very small subset of people at the top and not everybody else. And like, if you don't think that those people are already planning that, are already seeing the opportunities and the dollar signs, like they absolutely are. So anyway, lots going on here, lots happening. I love this. It's very like, it almost feels a little Pollyanna though. Like is any of that actually going to happen? Or is this going to be one of those documents that, in 10 years when things have gone off the rails, right? That we look back and say, oh, that was cute. We didn't do any of that. Okay. Let's talk about small business though, because let's get off the kind of broader implications. Sorry to freak everybody out. Stacy said, remember all the phone numbers we used to have memorized? And cell phones came into play, and how many numbers do you know by heart now? It took me like a year to finally decide to memorize my husband's phone number when he got a new one. I literally didn't know it forever, right? So those are the things, like those are little pieces, but it's like, how much are we losing of what we used to be able to do, what we used to have capacity for, right? Like we're losing so much of that because we don't have to hold it, which is great, but we're also so dependent on these technologies, and we've lost so much of, so much of our own like capability sometimes in the process. Okay. All right, real quick, let's talk about, I know this news section is going long, but I do want to talk about the state of AI adoption with small business. So I will pull that up. Actually, I'll just let you guys read this one yourself. But it talks a lot about how small businesses are actually using AI. There's really a big question about how many are using it, are implementing it. It's lower, right? Main Street versus Wall Street. Yep, that's a big shift. But there's less small businesses. There are a lot of small businesses that are adopting it. Again, I think the studies show some say like 16%, some say 80%, depends on how they're defining a small business, how they're defining AI, right? Ultimately though, it's growing significantly in AI adoption. But most small businesses, again, similar to what I was talking about before, they are not using this to necessarily replace workers. They are using it to gain efficiencies a lot of times. And this is where I think there is a good use case. It's great for business owners, right? Who are holding and doing so many tasks themselves that certain, tasks that are taking their time now can take less time and they can focus on things that are more important in their business. And so that's where I'm seeing it actually playing out for most small business owners is there are some real efficiency gains. But it isn't necessarily a play to like replace their whole workforce. Like I just find that idea for my workforce, I would never. Okay, let's see. Let me show this. This is the Small Business AI Outlook. I'll put this up. Here's this. This is from business.com. And there's a lot coming out right now. This is a big topic of conversation out there right now. So this is talking about, let's see, AI adoption has expanded. This one says 57% are investing, up from 36%, right? And 30% of employees are now using AI daily. Okay, it's coming, it's here. But this is what I wanted to point out. A trust gap is widening. 45% of small business workers worry that adopting too much AI could harm their company's reputation, and 30% act more enthusiastically about technology in front of their colleagues than they truly feel. All right. And time savings are real. Business, the average worker is saving 5.6. Managers are saving even more. Like I said, if you're a business owner, there's probably some opportunity for you to save. So there's a lot here. Right. But like I said, despite worker anxieties, only 12% of small businesses are very likely to reduce staff due to AI in the next 12 months. And that's just in the next 12 months. And 12% is still a lot of the small business workforce. So don't get me wrong. But what I want to say about this is this. And when the conversation comes up about how we as small businesses can deal with AI, I think there's a lot of rush to adoption. And like I said, if you decide to go the route where you want to adopt AI, great. But what I would say is as a small business, we're never going to be able to compete from a profit margin perspective, from a volume perspective, right? Pricing, all of those things with these big companies. So when we see these big companies making these shifts, I would argue that the goal is not to say, well, we as small businesses need to do this too, so that we can keep up with these big businesses. I would say the opposite. I would actually say that what's going to happen, the more big business moves towards automation, AI, away from real humans, the more premium, right? The more premium there is on true human interaction. So things like, trust, human connection, community, those are going to be the things that are our competitive advantage as small business owners. We should not automate those things, right? You can't trust. The more you automate something, the more customers feel like, is this real? Is this AI? I'm not sure I trust this. Everything coming out feels like AI slop, right? Everything sounds the same. The more we try to compete with these big companies and keep up with these big companies, it's truly a race to the bottom. And I think instead we need to, yes, sure, it doesn't mean we don't need to think about efficiencies on the back side of our business, the back end of our business, but we cannot allow that to impact our customers' experience. And in fact, we have the ability as a small business, right? We have, the opportunity to connect with our customers, our clients in a way that makes them feel seen, that the move towards AI is going the opposite direction. So in some ways, I think that's what we need to do. In some ways, I think we need to double down on the things that make us real and the things that make people want to do business with us, because I think that is going to be seen as a huge premium. It's going to be like a premium product when you actually get to talk to a human being, right? I've said this before, I will never be an AI avatar. I will not do it. It will be me recording. I'm sitting in my office, right? Recording this. We might have the mailman show up. My dog might start barking. My kids might come in, but it's going to be me. Would it save me time to just make a little AI avatar? And many of you maybe would never know it wasn't me. Probably, but I'm never going to do it. I'm never going to do it because I feel like my business would absolutely crash. People wouldn't trust anything that I had to say. People wouldn't trust the products that I sell, right? People wouldn't trust my recommendations for software services and things like that I give. And so I just refuse. I refuse. Same thing with my customer service manager. It will always be a person responding to you. Always. We may put some things in the back end to help with efficiency and make sure that you get better quality answers, but it will be a person. And those are commitments that I think as small business owners, we should double down on. We should not be, kind of riding this wave into essentially obscurity. This is how we set ourselves apart. There was something else I wanted to show here. Percent of small businesses investing in AI. It's growing. It's the biggest businesses that are doing the most. That probably doesn't surprise us at all, right? Smaller businesses are doing it less. I think there's an interesting part here, how often they're using. So this is a good, just if you want to kind of look through what are people using when we talk about AI. A lot of it's chatbots, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, AI search, image generators, learning tools, predictive analysis. So this is kind of the things that are being used right now. There goes my dog. He's barking. See, I'm a real person. But where is it? There was one, by role. Here's how much it's saving. So again, managers, this I found really interesting. It's saving males more time than females. That was really interesting. And then in the ages, I thought was interesting as well. Let me find where it is, because it was also, here it is. Here it is. Notably, women were more likely than men to express concern about AI's human and reputational implications. About 51% worry it could harm their company's image, and over a third feel it diminishes the meaning of their work, compared to 40% of men. That I found really interesting. That I found like a really interesting statistic to me, but it didn't surprise me. I do feel like this is something that we are beings of connection and community, so we need to lean into that. We have got to lean into the connection and community. We cannot lean away from it. That will not put us in the position that we think that it will, right? We need to lean into it. And I think that this is probably the reason that women are saving less time, because purposely they're saying, you know what, I don't want it to replace my community and my connection. That's something that's important to me. And gosh, we get a lot out of that too, not just our customers, right? I can't imagine not interacting with people. Like that's why I do these lives, because I like to interact. Yes, and Stacy, there's a lot, right? Yeah, if there's a way, if they're putting this in writing, they've already figured out a way to get them at the top. Probably this is it's almost like a CYA is what we used to call it, a cover your, you know what, right? Like let's put out a memo that shows like, look how great we are. We really thought about all of this, but at the end of the day, nothing ends up happening. Okay, all right. That was a lot. I'm going to move on to the last two segments really quickly in this. And we don't have a lot of time. So, but I just wanted to have this discussion because again, these are the things that you get a little bit of an insight into what my brain is doing on a daily basis and not from a place of fear, but I just think we need to be aware and we need to be watching. And I do think the fabric of both work and just in general, our economy as a whole is going to be changing over the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be almost unrecognizable from what it is today. Another reason we need to be adapting. And that doesn't necessarily mean adapting to AI, but we need to be able to adapt and pivot to change and make decisions based on that changing environment at all times. That's what's going to help small businesses be able to, ride through this and be, persevere. Okay. All right. Let's go to our to-dos section. All right, so super quick to-dos to wrap up what we were just talking about, the to-dos we need to be doing. I would say with AI, just think about, if you decide to use it, think about what your internal policies around it are. Even if you're a small company, even if it's just you, honestly, like how do you use it? What do you not want to use it for? What do you want to use it for? Right? Like get really clear on that, because I think that's going to be really important and really make sure that aligns with your company mission and values, because you don't want to be misaligned there. Right. And I will say for a little while, we're using more AI in some of our writing and things like that. And we pulled back and said, we're just going to put less out because we don't want it to fall into the abyss of just all this AI created content. It can feel like you need to keep up, right? All these people are posting content, 10 times a week or more. We're posting on Instagram like once a week now. Why? Because I don't want to post a bunch of crap, to be honest, right? Like I just don't. If I don't have something to say, I won't say it. And I'm going to write it. And so I think, that's something that is really kind of an important tenet. And you want to make sure that it's in line. Again, if it didn't feel aligned with the mission, so we had to pull back. And that's okay to play around with things and change and do one thing and then decide, you know what? Like, I actually want to do this a little bit differently. I think that that's the nature of being an adaptable business. So yeah, I would think about that. And then I would think about like auditing your processes of, what could be helpful, but where might you be over relying on it, right? Or your staff be over relying on it, where you need to kind of think about how you really want to use it. All right. And then for to-dos, also totally separate topic, but just a reminder, your Q2 estimated taxes are due June 15th. So don't forget those. I'm going to be getting back from vacation. So there's a good chance that I might forget them. So I might go ahead and go and pay them now so that I don't forget. And now let's move to the Q's section. All right. So we didn't have a lot of questions and we don't have a lot of time left, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. The only question that I did want to talk about is related to, I've been getting I talk a lot on this channel about hiring your kids. And I actually had a conversation with a reporter from MarketWatch this week who was doing a story, and she reached out to me because we have a lot of content on hiring your kids, and wanted to understand more about it and talk to me for her article. And she was really surprised because she was asking about what age can you hire your kids, right? And when I told her you can hire them at any age, again, if you do it correctly, I have a lot of resources that go over the how. She was really surprised. And that is the question I've been getting a lot is how old do your kids have to be? And there's no minimum age for you to hire your own kids to work in the business. And in fact, it's a great tax strategy. It's a great way to build, legacy for yourself and for your children. You can start a Roth IRA for them. There's a lot of amazing things. They can learn great tasks. My son can do graphic design in Canva now. He's 12, right? So there's a lot of amazing things your kids can learn. You can pay them for showing up on your business's Instagram or Facebook, right? As an actor or a model. You can do that when they're 1. Right? So there's a lot of opportunity. So I wanted to share with that. If, we're going into summer now, if you're like, shoot, my kids need something to do, I will put that up. We have a hiring your kids masterclass going on right now. And let me just tell you, if you watch the masterclass, there might be a special bonus at the end. So I highly recommend you watch the masterclass. But we have it's an encore masterclass. I recorded it actually last year, but you can watch it on demand or you can pick a time to watch it. And it will walk you through, what you need to think about, how it saves money on taxes, how you can use it to turn your kid into a millionaire someday. Recommend that. We do some math on that just to show you how beneficial this can be for your own legacy. So definitely check out the masterclass if you haven't seen it. It's a really good one. And your kids probably need something to do this summer that isn't stare at screens. So I highly, highly, highly recommend. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me and listening to me wax and wane a little bit about AI. I'm curious what you're thinking about it. Put your comments down below in the comments. I'd love to see, how you're thinking about it, both as a small business and as a consumer, right? And as just, a citizen, a human on Earth. So thanks, everybody. And we will see you next time. Bye for now.